Ankita Robin and welcome to SD Global News. From the patriarchs of Syrian churches calling for an immediate end to the heart-wrenching bloodshed and brutality in Syria against religious minorities to the new faith-based alternative to traditional banking co-founded by evangelist and motivational speaker Nick Vujicic, we have many stories to cover. The patriarchs of Syrian churches have called for an immediate end to the bloodshed in Syria. Greek Orthodox Patriarch John X of Antioch, Syriac Orthodox Patriarch More Ignatius Ephraim II, and Melkite Greek Catholic Patriarch Yusuf Absi decried the escalating brutality and called on all involved parties to end the violence and pursue peaceful solutions. Amid the massive violence and revenge killings that started last Thursday in Syria, the heads of the nation's Christian churches called for an immediate end to the bloodshed. In a joint statement released on March 9th, Greek Orthodox Patriarch John X of Antioch, Syriac Orthodox Patriarch More Ignatius Ephraim II, and Melkite Greek Catholic Patriarch Yusuf Absi decried the escalating brutality that resulted in the deaths of hundreds of innocent civilians, including women and children. While condemning the massacres, the patriarchs called for swiftly creating conditions conducive to achieving national reconciliation among the Syrian people. They stated, quote, "It is essential to establish an environment that facilitates the transition to a state that respects all its citizens and lays the foundation for a society based on equal citizenship and genuine partnership free from the logic of vengeance and exclusion." Calling on all involved parties to end the violence and pursue peaceful solutions, the church leaders concluded with a prayer. Meanwhile, Iraqi Christian Foundation posted heart-wrenching pictures and videos of the massacres, stating that entire Syrian Christian and Alawite families were slaughtered by terrorist forces belonging to the Al-Qaeda ISIS Syrian government. According to the foundation, the death toll has risen to 1,800, with several people still missing. Houses and businesses belonging to Christians and minorities were also looted and destroyed. As the mass slaughter of religious minorities, particularly Alawites and Christians, continues in Syria, U.S. Representative Tim Burchett has called for prayers for Syrian Christians. In the revenge killings that followed clashes between Assad loyalists and government forces on Thursday, over 1,000 people were killed, marking the deadliest violence since 2014. U.S. Representative for Tennessee's 2nd Congressional District, Republican Tim Burchett, has called for prayers for Christians being slaughtered in Syria. In a post on X, he urged prayers for fellow Christians affected by the ongoing violence. Violence erupted in coastal villages of Syria following clashes between sympathizers of Bashar al-Assad, primarily from the Alawite community, and security forces near Jableh. The ongoing conflict marks the worst violence since the toppling of Assad's government in early December by insurgents led by the Islamist group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. According to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, more than 1,000 people have been killed in revenge attacks that followed. The victims largely belonged to the Alawite community, an offshoot of Shia Islam and Christianity. The observatory reports that 745 of those killed were civilians, 125 were members of the government security forces, and 148 were loyalists of Assad. The Iraqi Christian Foundation, an advocacy group for Iraqi Christians and Middle Eastern minorities, stated that many Christians were among those killed by the Western-backed HTS regime. Among the victims were Antoine Boutros and his son Fadi Boutros, members of a local evangelical church who were shot to death by jihadists. Marwan Shahada, a Christian leader, was also reportedly found murdered in the Valley of the Nazarenes. He was killed with a machete. Local media reports indicate that over 7,000 civilians are currently seeking refuge at a Russian airbase near Latakia. Ahmad al-Shara, the current president of Syria and a former al-Qaeda militant, had promised peaceful coexistence with religious minorities after rising to power on December 8th. However, 3 months into his rule, that promise appears to have collapsed. Syrian Christians, who make up roughly 10% of the country's population, are facing an imminent threat of extermination as jihadists loyal to the current al-Julani government unleashed violence on Christian and Alawite strongholds. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced that the State Department has begun reviewing the situation in Syria and urged the country's government to take immediate action to restrain the militants. Syrian Christians are facing an imminent threat of genocide as jihadist militants, allegedly supported by the interim government led by Abu Muhammad al-Julani, unleashed violence on the country's Alawite majority regions. The unrest erupted following Gilani's takeover of Syria from Bashar al-Assad, leading to a surge in attacks by Islamic organizations affiliated with ISIS and al-Qaeda. These militant groups have been targeting the country's Alawite and Christian populations, whom they accuse of remaining loyal to the Assad family. The targeted killings reportedly began after members of the Alawite community, frustrated by Gilani's oppressive rule, opened fire on a Syrian security patrol. In response, jihadist militants loyal to Gilani launched a brutal crackdown on Alawite strongholds, indiscriminately attacking households, including women and children. Reports indicate that militants have torched and ransacked homes belonging to Christians and Alawites, further escalating the crisis. A few international media correspondents who remained in Syria reported that a village with a population of nearly 80% Greek Orthodox Christians was specifically targeted. Eyewitnesses who managed to flee described how militants indiscriminately opened fire on residents, leaving little chance of survival for those trapped inside. The Syria Campaign and the Syrian Network for Human Rights reported that both jihadist militants and pro-Assad forces were carrying out mass executions and systematic killings. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, in a press interview, said the administration is closely monitoring the situation in Damascus and urged Syrian authorities to hold the perpetrators of these massacres accountable. Nearly 3,000 individuals will enter into full communion with the Catholic Church this Easter in the Archdiocese of Atlanta, marking a significant increase from last year's figure of approximately 2,400. Of the 2,931 individuals, 874 catechumens will receive all three sacraments of initiation: baptism, the Eucharist, and confirmation. In St. Paul's letter to the Romans, he writes, "We were buried therefore with him by baptism into death, so that as Christ was raised from the dead by the glory of the Father, we too might walk in newness of life." Every year during the Easter Vigil, which marks the culmination of the Paschal Triduum and the resurrection of Jesus Christ, individuals who have undergone the rite of Christian initiation of adults receive the sacraments of baptism, confirmation, and the Eucharist. Various dioceses across the United States are poised to welcome hundreds of individuals through these rites of initiation. Among them is the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Atlanta. In a Facebook post, Archbishop Gregory John Hartmayer of the Archdiocese of Atlanta announced that 874 catechumens and 2,057 candidates will join the Catholic Church during this year's Easter Vigil. This marks a significant increase from last year, when approximately 2,400 individuals entered into full communion with the Catholic Church from the Diocese of Atlanta. The rite of election for the candidates and catechumens took place this weekend at the Cathedral of Christ the King. The rite of election marks a transition for catechumens from a period of inquiry and preparation to a more intense phase of spiritual formation. Generally presided over by the bishop, the ceremony involves the enrollment of names and the catechumens' public declaration of their intent to receive the sacraments of initiation. By receiving all three sacraments of initiation, the catechumens, and by receiving the sacrament of confirmation, the candidates will enter into full communion with the Church, thereby writing their own personal history of salvation. As more people embrace their faith, the Diocese of Westminster is preparing to welcome 500 new members into the Catholic Church with a special ceremony held on Saturday, March 8th. The rite of election and call to continuing conversion, led by His Eminence Cardinal Vincent Nichols, was a momentous occasion for the catechumens and candidates.
The Diocese of Westminster is gearing up to receive 500 people into the Catholic Church. A rite of election and a call to continuing conversion was held at the Westminster Cathedral on Saturday, March 8, to welcome the catechumens and the candidates. His Eminence Cardinal Vincent Nichols presided over the liturgy, joined by Bishops John Sherrington, Nicholas Hudson, Paul McAleenan, and James Curry. During the service, the Cardinal declared over 250 catechumens as the elect and recorded their names in the Book of the Elect, which will be displayed in the baptistry of the Westminster Cathedral until Holy Saturday. Also, 250 candidates who were already baptized Christians were affirmed by their sponsors and the congregation during the call to continuing conversion. This is the largest number of candidates and catechumens to the Diocese of Westminster's rite of election since 2018. During the service, Cardinal Nichols thanked God for all the ways in which the parishes and the diocesan family will be enriched by the new Catholics and promised to continue to support them freedom with prayers and an example of Christian life. The rite of election, celebrated annually on the first Saturday of Lent, marks the beginning of a period of continued preparation until Easter, when the elect and the candidates will receive sacraments of initiation, baptism, confirmation, and First Holy Communion in their parishes.
Mark Carney, an economist who saved Canada from severe financial ruin during the 2008 economic crisis, is set to succeed Justin Trudeau as the leader of the Liberal Party and assume the nation's highest office. Carney won 85% of the 1,223 registered party delegates' votes cast during the Liberal Party conference on Sunday and is set to assume the position next week. Amid a fiery exchange of disagreement between the United States and Canada regarding the newly imposed tariff, Canada's Liberal Party announced on Thursday that the renowned crisis economist and former governor of the Bank of Canada, Mark Carney, would replace Justin Trudeau as the leader of the party and the country's top official. Carney was declared the winner of the race when 85% of the 1,223 registered party delegates cast their votes for him on the first ballot, instead of his rival and former Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland, who secured only 15% of the vote. Carney, who styles himself as a political outsider, emerged as a prominent crisis economist when he helped Canada avoid financial ruin in 2008 after a devastating economic crisis had crippled almost all the world's best-performing economies at the time. Carney also served as the governor of the Bank of England from 2013 to 2020, making him the first non-British person to hold the position in the institution's 80-year history. After resigning from the post in 2020, Carney returned to Canada and played an important role in overseeing the British economy during the COVID-19 crisis. After being announced as the leader, Carney announced that his new government would put in place a new plan to build a stronger economy, adding that he wanted to secure firm relations with reliable trade partners. He also addressed the ongoing threat of the U.S. administration placing a threat on the country's exported goods and planned to retaliate by imposing higher tax on U.S. goods exported to Canada. The Trump administration's Department of Justice has moved to drop charges against Idaho's pro-life law, which had been filed by the Biden administration on the grounds that it violated the Federal Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act. However, St. Luke's Health System has now filed its own lawsuit against Idaho, citing the same concerns.
This week, the Trump administration took steps to dismiss a federal lawsuit filed under the Biden administration against Idaho's broad abortion plan. According to court documents submitted by St. Luke's Health System, which has also filed a lawsuit against the state over the law, the Department of Justice moved to drop the case. Idaho's state law heavily restricts abortion, allowing it only in life-threatening situations or in cases of rape or incest. The Biden administration previously argued that the stringent ban violates the Federal Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act. In August 2022, the Biden's Department of Justice sued Idaho over its pro-life law. While the Supreme Court temporarily blocked the law last year, it did not provide a final resolution. The case then moved to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in December, but the ruling is still pending. Many within the pro-life community believe that the federal law is being used to create a loophole that would enable elective abortions in Idaho. Meanwhile, Idaho's pro-life law continues to face legal challenges from St. Luke's Health System. The hospital, anticipating Trump's Department of Justice decision to drop the case, has filed its own new lawsuit. Like the Biden administration, St. Luke's argues that women experiencing medical emergencies may be denied life-saving abortions under the current law.
The U.S. Postal Service will release a stamp this year honoring Catholic writer and conservative icon William F. Buckley Jr. The announcement was made on March 6, 2025. The stamp features original artwork by Dale Stefanos and was designed by USPS art director Greg Breeding.
The U.S. Postal Service is set to release a stamp this year honoring Catholic writer William F. Buckley Jr., one of the most influential public intellectuals in modern American history. The announcement was made on March 6, 2025. Other stamps to be released soon will include those celebrating the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army, U.S. Navy, and U.S. Marine Corps, as well as a stamp reviewing the 2026 World Stamp Show to be held in Boston. William F. Buckley Jr. stamp features original original hand-created art by Dale Stefanos with graphite and charcoal on hot-press watercolor paper that was refined digitally. The stamp was designed by Greg Breeding, an art director for USPS. Born in 1925, William F. Buckley Jr. defined the conservative movement of the mid-20th century and was one of its most recognizable spokesmen. Author for more than 50 books, Buckley founded National Review in 1955 and hosted the Emmy Award-winning public affairs television program Firing Line for more than 30 years. In his autobiography, Buckley wrote that he was baptized and raised as a Catholic by devout parents and had unwavering faith throughout his life. He also noted that the Catholic Church was governed by a vision that had not changed in 2000 years. Buckley passed away in 2008. To mark William F. Buckley Jr.'s 100th birthday in 2025, National Review Institute will launch a campaign, WFB 100, which will include a series of special events and educational projects, publications, and special issue of National Review.
Evangelist and motivational speaker Nick Vujicic has founded a new faith-based alternative to traditional banking. After being debanked in 2019 due to his support for the pro-life movement, Nick, along with Betsy Gray, established the company to uphold pro-life values in the financial sector.
Evangelist and motivational speaker Nick Vujicic, alongside Betsy Gray, has launched a new faith-based online banking service, Pro-Life Fintech. The financial technology company aims to provide a Christian alternative to traditional banking with a mission to align its services with Christian values, particularly the sanctity of life. The inspiration for Pro-Life Fintech came to Nick about 5 years ago when he was suddenly debanked for his support of a pro-life movement. This experience motivated him to create a financial service that caters to conservatives and aligns with their values. Nick's troubles began in 2019 when he publicly spoke out against abortion during an interview. Following this, articles criticizing him were published and he was threatened with a lawsuit. Later, he was abruptly kicked out of his bank without warning. His credit and debit cards were frozen, and the bank sent him a letter stating that after reviewing his account, they no longer wished to have business with him. This experience sparked Nick's determination to create a new financial organization. In recent years, many conservatives, both in the US and abroad, have faced similar actions from financial institutions. In 2022, former US Senator and Religious Freedom Ambassador Sam Brownback was also targeted by debanking. After being debanked by Chase, Nick began working towards launching a financial institution that would support pro-life efforts, especially after discovering that many mainstream banks were donating to organizations that promote abortion. Betsy Gray, who has a strong financial background and experience managing a women's medical clinic that upholds the sanctity of unborn life, joined Nick in his mission to create a banking service that aligns with pro-life values.
That's all for today. Until we meet again, God bless and thank you.